Can you tell me about the impact of mediocre hiring and some of the long-term consequences that come with that?
If you look at a lot of messaging that recruiters use, they often talk about that they want to scare you with, oh, here's the risk of a bad hire. Here's what a bad hire will do to your company. Scare, 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 scare. And it's true, there is that risk, but I think the real risk and the real problem is actually much more insidious than that. So the thing is, most of the time, even an unskilled interviewer can tell someone who's obviously incompetent at what they do, or also someone who's top 1% in their field. The real challenge is in the middle. It's actually the differences between someone who's good at their job, say 60th percentile, and someone who's great at their job, say 80th percentile. They're quite subtle. They're quite difficult to identify if you don't know what to look for. And so a lot of people, they end up hiring people who are almost great, but not quite. And it creates what I like to call, it's a little dramatic, I know, but I like to call it the slow motion train wreck of mediocre hiring. And it looks a little something like this. So, you're the founder, you've got the vision, no one's going to be as dedicated as you. You've got your funding. Okay, now it's time to build a team. So maybe you hire a B player as your first hire. And then B players tend to hire C players. So the more mediocrity you allow in the organization, the more it will fester. And if you think about the best people you've ever worked with, the A players, I know it's cliche terminology, but let's roll with it. No one's come up with a better one yet. The best people, they're force multipliers. It's the difference between you bring someone in, and you have to manage them and tell them what to do and watch what they're doing and make sure it's getting done, versus, hey, here's what we need you to accomplish. They go off, they come back, and they tell you they've done not only everything you wanted them to do, but also they've brought back things you didn't even think you needed. They create leverage, and they attract other A players to the organization. It creates, again, that upwards flywheel. But when you allow mediocrity creates more mediocrity. The more mediocrity that exists, the more you have to think about fighting fires and tactical concerns instead of vision and strategy. And in the industrial age, maybe you could get away with that because things were less competitive. But we all know most crypto projects are not going to survive. If you want to win, you can't afford mediocrity. You have to be at the right curve. And it's really, really critical to get ahead of that. It's a much harder problem to solve once you already have it than to prevent it in the first place. I think the meta is moving more and more in this direction. If you look at an industrial age company, can you believe there was a time where people used to measure the success of their company based on their headcount? That was actually a thing. Oh, look, we're doing great. We have 155 people now, and we're growing. We're going to be at 500 heads in 5 years. Now that would just signal inefficiency. If I think back to the industrial industries that I used to recruit in back in the day, I say back in the day, it's not even that long ago, but this is how fast everything's changing. In an industrial company, maybe the difference between a good, like that 60th and 80th percentile person, the difference might be 30 or 40%. It's definitely significant, but it's not world-changing, it's not world-ending because so much of the success of that company is based on the physical capital and assets and IP that they have. But in the knowledge economy, the people are everything, and the difference between the 60th and 80th percentile person, maybe it's not 30 or 40%. It could be thousands of percent. It's absolutely enormous. So it's so critical to get this right in a way that it never used to be. But the beauty of it is, if you have these A players, you don't need large headcounts. I think WhatsApp, when they sold for billions to Facebook, had 16 employees. And the vast majority of crypto teams that I recruit for have way less than 50 people, and they probably won't ever grow to that size. So some of the things that I advocate in terms of recruiting process will be completely unmanageable if you're trying to add heads at scale. The methodology that we execute, you're looking on average probably 150 man-hours of work per hire. You can't do that if you need to hire 1,000 people. It's way too expensive, but you don't need to hire 1,000 people. You need 4 or 5 key people who have leverage, and that's definitely achievable. So that's the good news.